Hello and welcome to The Coach's Journey. I'm Joey Owen, and today I had the absolute pleasure and fun of speaking with Jenny Bird. She shares throughout our conversation a whole host of insights that she has experienced throughout her coach's journey, ever since she was a child, working in her father's clothes shop in Derbyshire and standing on a box to see right over the counter. Jenny has spent her life being interested in people, the perfect trait for a coach, huh? She drew upon the principles of communication honed during these formative years as she blossomed into one of the United Kingdom's very first master coaches, going on to co-author renowned coaching titles such as The Art of Coaching, a Handbook of Tips and Tools, which I can highly recommend, and How to Work with People and Enjoy It. Great title, huh? In this episode of the Coach's Journey podcast, Jenny describes the experience of leaving community education and training to be a coach at the turn of the century, when stacks of materials, like physical paperwork, was posted across the Atlantic, and she joined conference calls on the telephone with coach trainers located all over the world. Throughout her training and her early forays into coaching at global corporations and in the NHS as well, Jenny surveyed the landscape of personal development for those who do things differently, describing her joy of sparkly new things. By consistently forging relationships with innovators and brilliant thinkers throughout the field because of her love of novelty, Jenny has enriched her career. She shares invaluable wisdom accumulated across this career through her books and in her role as co-founder at the Coach Continuum, which provides CPD, networking and supervision and really helps coaches flourish, which is totally aligned with what we do here at the Coach's Journey. We also talk about the benefits of being a risk taker and how to barter your way into getting what you want. That bit's fun. Partnering generously and being paid what you are worth, and how to tend to your LinkedIn garden, which she does particularly well, and bringing poetry and creativity into coaching to really cut through the emotion. She also shares with us here some invaluable advice to new coaches, outlining the mindset, the behaviours, the conditions that form the essential foundations for a successful business. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Happy listening. Jenny Bird, welcome to the Coach's Journey podcast.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
We are delighted to have you. And I have to probably let listeners know that this is third time lucky. Well, we hope. We have had 3 attempts at recording this, folks. That we are here. We are persevering, aren't we, Jenny?
And we have invested in new equipment at this end to make sure that it records well.
Yeah, we had illness. We had your internet issues. But now we are here. And 3 is a magic number. I believe I've said that before on this very podcast. I say it all the time. So I think we're going to be grand today. As you already know, and most of our listeners will know, we always love with a new guest to start an episode with the question, Jenny, yes, where did you first come upon this thing that we call coaching?
I was working in community education, which I loved. Well, I loved the community education. I didn't love the systems and the restructuring every year and the moving the funding about and the wriggling through the funding issues and anyway. And I thought, I'm just not going to stay here. And so I knew I liked listening to people, and I started training as a counsellor. And after a bit, I thought, this is a bit miserable. And then I saw a minute advert, just 1 column, 3 lines, tiny, saying a free day to tell you what coaching is, learn to be a coach, free day in London, and it was a Saturday, and I think it was the next Saturday, and I went, and I signed up. I went, this is for me. This is counselling made cheerful. I shall do this. Signed up,
Counselling made cheerful. Love that.
Signed up, trained, started taking clients, got made redundant a year and a half later, which I was expecting, and went, well, I was expecting there'd be the opportunity. And I went, whoopie-doo, I'm out of here. And that was 26 years ago.
Sounds very serendipitous, but I'm sure you must have had to have taken quite a lot of action to make all of that happen in the way that you've just described.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's tidy looking back, isn't it? We don't see the path till we're looking back. It felt very exciting. Recognizing coaching as the thing I really wanted to do was very exciting. Leaving a job was both exciting and a bit. People kept saying, "That's very brave. That's very brave." It's like, yes, very brave, Minister. I had 2 teenage kids and a husband who was on long-term sick, and nobody had heard of coaching. I left a reasonably well-paid job to go.
So what year is this, Jenny?
It was either 98 or 99. I'm not sure which.
Okay. And we're recording in 2025.
Yeah.
So some time ago.
I finally left the day job in 2001. But by then I was already reasonably well trained and I had some private clients.
Wow. Okay. So 2 to 3 years and you were in running a practice.
Well, yeah.
And
yes.
Zooming forward, Jenny, to now, 2025.
Yes.
And don't worry, we will certainly be revisiting and going back in your journey. But what does your practice look like now, day to day, week to week, month to month?
I coach individuals one-to-one, and the coaching doesn't look anything like the coaching looked like 25 years ago. Well, only slightly. 2 human beings sit and look at each other. It's, a lot has changed. So I coach, I supervise small groups and individual coaches. I do some coach training. I run masterclasses in CPD, and with my business partner, Ruchi Sharmeta, I run a membership organisation for coaches, which provides pretty much everything a coach needs to run their business and feel supported and feel connected and part of a community at an affordable price. So that's super exciting.
And it was super exciting to be in touch with you because that aligned so beautifully with the work that Robbie Swale does and the team does at the Coach's Journey.
Yes.
Really helping coaches to thrive as people whilst thriving as coaches and running a thriving coaching business. So I think Coaching Continuum, we will certainly be digging into.
It is fun. At Coach's Journey, you talk about thrive and we talk about flourish. Coach Continuum, where coaches flourish. Because it's hard when you start, isn't it? It was hard when I started because nobody had heard of it, and it's hard now for different reasons.
Well, that actually helps me jump back just a couple of minutes ago. Yeah. You said that coaching is nothing like what it was like then. And then you went on to kind of almost contradict that and say, well, it is still 2 people facing each other. And I don't remember the words you said, but, being present and all those delicious things that actually is all really we all want to do as coaches and why we get into it. My assumption is actually that's kind of the same in many ways. So I wondered if you wouldn't mind just for a moment digging into that.
Yes. Well, yes, it is the same. And when we started, I trained with an organisation called Coach U, which is still running, but its training has changed that whole recognition as well. So when I started, the internet wasn't like this. We didn't have Zoom calls. I don't think we even had Skype. So all the training I did as a coach was that they sent us across the world because the office was in the States. I'm putting my arms almost as wide as I can, stack of paper. It was just enormous. There were jokes about how much it weighed. It arrived on your doorstep in these enormous packages, in enormous ring binder folders. I kept it for a long time, and eventually I threw bits of it out. And so it had all these little modules, and they would be 6 half-hour conference phone calls or 6-hour conference phone calls, and you had to do so many modules. And the conference phone calls, the trainers were all over the world because there weren't many coaches, and there certainly weren't many sort of qualified and experienced coaches. So trainers were all over the world. So when I was training while running quite a big day job, I was sometimes getting up at 3:00 in the morning to do a course where the trainer was in New Zealand or something, doing an hour's course and going back to bed again. So it was all premised. Now, this is the thing that's come full circle. It was all premised on we do it on the phone. And then as soon as I started, people started asking to see me in person. And then it went all in person, really. And I was zipping about the country all the time, and indeed Europe. And then it has now come back full circle, and all my work is virtual. And what else was different? Well, it was quite, I had all these modules with types of client, how to coach the entrepreneur, yes. And we had all these wonderful questionnaires we were supposed to give people before we started, and we were supposed to do them ourselves. And there was one called Clean Sweep, and it had 100 things you had to tick is everything all tidy? And one of the things was, do you floss daily?
Do you floss
daily?
Wow. And what did that indicate for you? How did that help your practice as a coach?
Well, that was what you asked your clients to do, but we did them because you had to do. Well, there was a health, that was in the health section, so do you eat vegetables? But do you floss daily? I mean, there is some evidence about the plaque that builds up on your teeth contributing to heart disease. The evidence is still around. They didn't explain that. It just said, try and get your clients to get higher scores. They do a score when they start, and then they do it again. And you've encouraged them to have all these healthy habits, and their clean sweep score goes up.
So I guess this really comes under the umbrella here of what you're talking about is, and we might come on to labelling or something a bit later in the conversation, but this feels like really holistic life coaching.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yes. And most people called themselves life coaches. I didn't at that point. I think I would always just like to call myself a coach, but then you get mixed up with sport, which I'm, don't do at all, don't. But yes, most people did call themselves life coaches. There were coaches in businesses, and some large businesses were training, Glaxo and places were SmithKline were training, internally training coaches, and it was fantastic training at a similar sort of time, I think. But you don't discover that if you're, just wafting about, looking at little tiny adverts in papers.
Yeah. And for people who aren't watching the YouTube, when you said about the tiny serendipitous article that you saw in the paper, you did this tiny, tiny little box with your hands. It really was tiny, hence it being serendipitous that you saw such a...
It was tiny and it shouted at me. So I think what was different was that it seemed formulaic, and it seemed simple, and it seemed, this is a step-by-step process you go through with a client. And it didn't have or talk about the psychological underpinnings we have now. I mean, I think a lot of it was stunning. And Coach, you do very different training now. They were founded by Thomas Leonard. And if you can read the work of Thomas Leonard, it's very interesting, the portable coaches. I sent for the portable coach again recently because I'd read it 26 or 27 years ago, and somebody had borrowed the copy and not given it back. So I sent for it again, and it's very humane.
Really? We'll put it in the show notes if you think it's worth a dipping into for coaches in the present day.
I need to think about that. I'm looking across at my bookcase now, going, where did I actually put it after I bought it? And I had a look. It will read as very dated, but at that time it was. And I think the whole bundle of then, if I just stop joking about the questionnaires, the things that we did, the things that we were encouraged to do as coaches, now are proved to be useful, but we didn't have the psychological underpinnings at the time. So asking people to visualize something, to visualize the outcome, to move around while they're doing it. Some of those things we did without, because they worked, asking people to draw something or whatever. but we didn't know why they worked. And now we do know more about that.
Now we have some good evidence, like you said, psychological underpinning. We have the science to back up why this works, not just that we see it working over and over.
So the psychological underpinning, and at that point, or fairly soon around that, because the internet wasn't what it is, I think the people at Oxford Brookes were already working, and probably at Ashridge on. And there's going to be an outcry out there if anybody's actually listening about, well, I was, in 2098, I was doing this. But we were all in little silos. And I didn't hear about EMCC until I was an MCC with ICF. So I'd been coaching 7 years before I heard about EMCC. And it had existed for most of that time. But because we weren't online and, whizzing through it every day, I met ICF coaches and I heard about that. I was in that. And then in about 2006 or 7, I got onto one of the NHS lists, and most of the people on that were EMCC. And after the first meeting, I went, oh, what's this? How can I find out about this? And they were all a bit, oh, you're ICF.
God, what a different landscape then 20 years ago, or 25 years ago.
Well, whatever, yeah.
Yeah. So the conditions around our coaching practices were certainly very different. And there's the formulaic work that you were talking about. And all
mind you, I think most of us were bending the formulas pretty quickly. Most of us were,
Good to know.
Yeah. Yes, I do want to say, I think I gave people the clean sweep questionnaire about 5 times, and then I got so bored and embarrassed that I just stopped doing it.
Well, I've heard you speak before, actually. That's just sparked a memory for me. I heard you in a lovely, cheerful way talking about how you love sparkly new things and the novelty factor. And I was wondering now, if we're talking about your practice now, as we jumped forward, how has that really served you? And I'm compound questions. And what are the shadow sides of that? Because I think that must have played into why you didn't do that for more than 5 times. So now, sparkly new things and the novelty factor, how does it play into your practice?
Oh, well, I think the plus side is it keeps me up to date and edgy, and I'm always having a little whiz down LinkedIn, looking for articles I'm interested in, seeing who's doing something different. And then I'll go and have a look. Oh, interesting. Oh, I was looking at common factor theory the other day because I'd seen somebody talking about that. Well, that's interesting. I mean, and luckily most of it plays out in other parts of my life. And also, I've very carefully, for years, worked with people who, although they're also very creative, are going to say, no, look, we have to do this by this date. No, we can't do that now. So I can't go off and pursue the sparkly new things in an unhelpful, unuseful manner.
Okay. So you've had to find balance.
I have a close friend, and I said to her recently, look, I've had the most amazing idea. I really want you to tell me we can't do it. So I told her about it. She said, no, we can't do it. No, we haven't got time.
So you get to express it, and then you might need to put it on the shelf for now anyway. But
yeah. To learn how much energy I've got and think about where I actually want to put it.
And the way you talk about the novelty in your life and the exploration of new things feels that process in itself is quite energizing, which you can then use that energy in your other areas of your practice, even if you found something new and put it on the shelf. It's there, and you've gone through that lovely process and fulfilled that.
And I think one of the things I notice in Coach Continuum already, we've only been running since November, is that people ask us, why are you doing it like that? And newer coaches, oh, well, that's riveting, isn't it? We're running supervision groups, and they're closed supervision groups with a certain number. And a very new coach said, I can't come to mine. Can I go to another one? And we went, well, I went, oh, no. We don't move from supervision group. And then I said to Richard, I think I might have been a bit defensive there. Why can't we? So now we're running open supervision groups as well that anybody can drop into.
And is that part of the membership? I didn't quite follow what you said.
Yes, sorry. So within the membership, we run in one level, there are levels of membership. We run supervision groups, and they were closed. You're in this supervision group, and it meets this many times, and as most supervision groups are.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then someone said, I can't come to my supervision group. Can I go to the other one next week? And we said, well, no, because members don't move around. And the person said, well, we're all members of the same organisation. Can't we just...
That's interesting. So you introduced some flexibility and flow, and actually they're two words I've heard you describe, and it kind of to describe your, your practice now. And the way you did describe it 10 minutes ago or so, to say what your practice looks like at the moment and your business, was very much full of variety and flexibility and flow.
Yes.
So
and not doing it this way just because we've always done it this way, or most people do it this way. Why are all supervision groups closed? Yes, we know it's because it builds trust, and people work together for a long time. They get closer and more able to be vulnerable, and more able to work at a deeper level together. And when did we last have supervision groups in which people come and go? Can we test that out in other circumstances? So I'm always willing to experiment, and that makes it interesting, doesn't it? I mean, I couldn't if sitting in front of somebody, if I've been having to do the forms with people for 25 years, I would have gone mad, wouldn't I? It's, the excitement of coaching is the curiosity of, oh, who is this person? How do they come to think that? Oh, is that how they do it? Oh, that's very interesting. What follows from that? It's just really riveting, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it? I mean, I think that's a lot of what motivates a lot of what we do, isn't it? And in supervision, now you're talking about the groups, and you've had curiosity and some reflection to go, actually, why can't we make them more fluid? Why can't we open them up? What's been the outcome of that?
Well, we're experimenting with it.
You're in the midst of experimentation.
We're in the midst of the experiment. And so we've got both running, and we'll see what works. We'll see who comes to which. We'll ask people what they thought. We'll see what we thought. I'm guessing that going forward we'll do a mix, but I'm not sure yet. I don't want to presume until we see how everyone feels about it. And there are other people running open and flexible groups anyway. Yeah. So,
and
other people have
supervision's played a really big part in the longevity of your career. So if we journey back a little now, how and where did that element of your work begin? Because where we left off before, you had just set up your own practice and you were coaching people one-to-one, and you'd been made redundant, and we've kind of leapt forward and stayed there since. So if we go back again,
it's part of the whole scene, the whole environment of coaching changes. I think I think I was really lucky being up in at the beginning and a risk taker. So it's felt to me as though every time I kind of thought I was okay and pretty much knew how to do something else opened up. So I was coaching, was really enjoying it. Somebody asked me, and of course I'd come out of education. I'd come out of community education, which is also in itself, I mean, really exciting and interesting, because I was running a community education hub, which had 40 venues, and we ran in the evenings and the weekends, and we had one venue which ran all the time, but all the others were just in the schools and the village halls. And we ran everything from prenatal yoga to Japanese to metalwork, whatever the community either wanted or would take up. and all over the place. And it was terribly exciting. We did a lot of craft work. We had lots of really great craft and art exhibitions, and we had Christmas cake making competitions and goodness knows what. How did I get onto that? So there was always something about, what haven't we tried? I wonder what people would like. Ask people what they'd like out at that village hall. Ask if you. We haven't got anything for the teenagers over there. Ask, what about golf? There's a field there, So it was always very, what's next? What can be interesting? So I guess I was always looking for what intrigues and interests people, what's available. Anyway, I know what I was going to say. Because I'd come out of education, so I'd been coaching a couple of years, and Wolverhampton University asked me to be, here's the educational terminology, the internal moderator for their coach training programs, which they'd just started. So because...
Hang on, so when was this? When was this? When you'd left the community education work, you went back to Southampton University?
No, I didn't go back. I went part-time to Wolverhampton University. I live near Southampton, but I went to Wolverhampton University to be the person who verified, is this education speak, who verified the marking of their students' work. All right, so you've got 2 or 3 markers. Somebody has to come in and say all the markers are marking to the same standard, and it's the standard they said they would mark to. So you don't get an A+ if you're with Joey and Jenny gives the same thing, a C-. So there were lots of things like that. So then I became a moderator and a trainer and an assessor for various coach training schools. So I did a lot of listening to student recordings against ICF competencies for the Academy of Executive Coaching. I did this stuff for Wolverhampton. That course didn't last for very long. Then I started being an ICF mentor, and then I was an ICF assessor. So every time I got, I know how to do this. Okay. And then I went, yes, but look, I could be an assessor. And then, and I did a barter for an AOEC course. So I was marking, I wonder if there's anybody there who'll remember this. At John Leary Joyce night. So I was being an assessor for their students' recordings. I was the external assessor with no bias because I didn't know the students because I wasn't teaching them. I just got these recordings, which were sent by peculiar files then. Goodness knows what the files were online and were terribly difficult.
When is this? This must be the early 2000s now.
This is 2004, 2004 or 5 maybe. Or 6, and that's right. That's how I got the work. It was the other way around. I think it was 2007. I wanted to do the AOEC certificate in the psychology of coaching. So you see, now I've caught up with myself. I've realised there's psychology underpinning this stuff and decided I ought to find out about it. It was very expensive. Sorry, AOEC. It was very expensive and I couldn't afford it. So I rang them up and I said, look, you say people have got to do 3 modules, but it looks so good. I'd like to do all 5 modules and I can't afford it. Can I be an assessor for you? And they went, oh my goodness, one of our assessors resigned yesterday. Yes, you can. We'll do a barter.
Serendipity again.
Yes. And I had to do 75 recordings in order to pay for this program. So I was still doing them for years.
I asked you earlier if you took any action in amongst this process. I mean, that's a real kind of go get it. You see something, dare I say, sparkling new, next stage. Oh, look at this. But you really go for it. So I'm wondering for, a lot of our listeners are new coaches, and that's a really bold move. You were being really bold there. So yes. Bold can really work.
I bartered a lot of stuff to start with. I joined a business networking group. The first website was a barter. The photographs on it were a barter. So there was a copywriter on it. That was a barter. So I was coaching all these people who did all these other things for me.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you've got the gift of the gab too. That's for sure.
I grew up behind a shop. I had this. This is a shameful thing. I like selling things. I have to be really careful because I actually like selling. This is really shameful. I just like selling things, and I could sell something. I could try and sell something where I didn't actually believe in the thing. So I have to be quite careful.
Wow, what training? What kind of shop?
Menswear.
Right.
Men's
Was this your
clothes.
parents' shop? I think I've read this or heard about this somewhere about you. So it was your parents' shop, is that
My
right?
dad's shop. Yeah, that's my
Your
dad's
dad's
shop.
shop.
My dad was in the rag trade. My dad was a real, I'm making a gesture now, feeling cloth. I still do that sometimes. He would feel the cloth, and it was in Derbyshire, and it was a working men's shop. And people used to come in. This tells you how incredibly old I am. People used to come in, and they wouldn't speak to my mum or me. They'd say, "Want to speak to Maester," because we wanted to speak to a man.
You'd want to speak to
Maester, the master, Maester, because they wanted to buy underwear. So they wouldn't speak to a woman.
I'm definitely from the south. Oh wow!
They wouldn't speak to a woman, and I was serving in the shop at Christmas when I had to stand on a box to see over the counter.
Oh, Jenny, I hope you have photos. If there are
No,
any
no,
photos.
no. I mean, we'll have a photo of the shop window.
And what memories.
Yeah.
And so this sparked it sounds as if obviously this love of selling you've just so beautifully described, so energetically with such fun and joy in your face. So you love selling things. So this has really sparked that. What else do you think you learned there that you've then taken into, you went into education, but then into your coaching, which is more relevant for here?
I mean, I think as a child, I thought I was, we lived behind the shop and there were always people coming in. I think it seemed like the norm to me for there to be always people arriving. To be thinking about what those people were looking for and what they were wanting. And so I think the flow of people is would be really quite hard to retire. My husband occasionally says to me, "No, don't retire because you'll just ask me questions all the time."
This way you get to ask everyone else questions all the time. He's off the hook.
Absolutely. So, it made me very sociable, I think. And also, my dad was terribly racist, and that made me absolutely hugely committed to inclusion and equality and diversity and all those lovely, lovely things.
Wow, that fascinates me because you could, of course, just been heavily influenced by your dad and gone in a very different direction. So what do you think it is in you that opposed that? And from what age did you oppose that?
Certainly early teens. My mum was different, and my mum didn't think that. And there wasn't much scope in the town we lived in. I mean, there was no people of colour at all. There were people in Derby. My friends and I used to go to the market in Derby and look at the sari stores and love the material. And then when I went to university, and by that, I mean, I'd argue with my dad. I liked him very much. I loved him and he was funny. He made me laugh a lot, which is always very important to me. But I argued with him vehemently. I just knew it wasn't right. I just knew it wasn't right to treat somebody differently because they looked different. I couldn't see how, I don't know where that comes from. It may well have come from my mum and the sorts of books that she gave me to read when I was a child. I don't know. When I went to university, I immediately made friends and am still friends with, very many years on, a Jewish woman and a Malaysian woman.
We forge those bonds at university, don't we?
Yeah. And I didn't realise for many years this was my revenge on my dad, really. Because then he
didn't know either.
He pretty much had to have them in the house.
Wow. What a difference.
Yeah.
So you're in the shop and you are loving the social side of it and different people coming in, although it sounds like they weren't enormously diverse, but different people coming in, and you're forging this love of selling and this sense of community I'm feeling as well, and engagement. I'm curious now, perhaps leaping forward a little bit, but maybe not, because maybe this has been threaded throughout your journey as a coach. What would you say with this love of selling, what kind of, tips and tricks do you have for so many of us, me included, who do not have a love of selling or not acknowledged it or seen it or felt it yet? What tips and tricks? How can we really develop this real love for this craft we have and being able to sell it well?
We have to love the craft first, don't we? I mean, I worry that every now and again I will try and foist something on somebody. We have to be able to voice what we love about it and what we believe about it, and be willing to say that. And it is actually talking to somebody about whether they would like to be coached or they would like whatever it is we're offering in that coaching forum is like coaching, because it's about, what does this person want or need? What is right for this person? So I don't try and sell my coaching to everyone or anyone's coaching to everyone. I'm very interested in, so I don't know which comes first. I think it's maybe selling. I'm making my chair creak. Maybe selling is not. I mean, my son said to me reminded me the other day that I still say, if they buy a shirt, don't let them out without a tie, which is what my dad used to say, because everybody wore
and what's the equivalent of that in your work now?
Yeah. Well, if they want one coaching session, obviously a series is better because there's an impetus to it and you've got more chance to experiment and grow and develop. So, you're well advised to have several coaching sessions so that we can see that progression and develop it, and you can experiment, I guess. I mean, I don't think I ever say that now.
I guess that experimental mindset seems to be quite a part of your work.
Yes. Well, we could call it creative, couldn't we? Yes.
And there's a huge amount of creativity from what I've seen in the work that you do. And yet there also seems to be quite a good element of structure and success and sales and a, dare I say it, thriving, flourishing coaching practice. So how do you kind of allow for that creativity and innovation and sparkling new things and all of this energy, flexibility, fluidity, all of that stuff, and then have this nice kind of balance it out with this structure? How do you get those to coexist and work well together in running a business, a coaching business?
Well, working with other people. Ruchi she's creative also, and she's brilliant at structure. And almost
and Ruchi is your business partner now.
Currently my partner in Coach Continuum. I wrote 2 books with Sarah Gornall. Sarah Gornall's the one who made us meet the publisher's deadlines. Thank you, Sarah. No, Jenny, we're not doing that now. We're finishing this chapter.
Okay, like your friend says, no, we're not doing that. Put it on the shelf.
We're finishing this chapter. And the art of coaching is now 10 years old, and the publisher has asked us to do a sort of update of it. So that's the August project.
August. Well, folks, we are recording on the 22nd of July. So August is very soon. Let's dig into that in a second. I just want to definitely clarify that what you've said is the way that you manage the creativity and the structure and allow them to coexist is you collaborate with people to find a way to balance each other out.
I do collaborate with people, but I think it's fair to say I am also, they're a shop, right? It's all very well enjoying the clothing, isn't it? And loving the material. And this is my dad again. We could try and sell those trousers like that. But you have to make money. You have to open the shop. You have to have the goods there. You have to write it down. You have to, blah, blah. I think I'm quite pragmatic as well. Community education was like that too. I'm sorry we can't run that. We haven't got enough students. I'd like to run Japanese, but we've only got 6 students this year. Here's the funding mechanism. We can't do it. Now, if we can think of a way we can do it, we can think of a cunning way to encourage people to take Japanese rather than car mechanics. Well, let's do that. But, yes. So that I think I'm in Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTP. So there's a T bit. I'm just like to make sure there is some structure. I do like to survive. I mean, I like to have a business which has got both, which is what people want and developing all the time, not being static, and useful to people. But also it is a business, not a giveaway. One of the things on our website, on the original website, is we like to partner generously with our clients. We do like to be generous. We don't want to be nitpicky over the costing, and we've got to be paid what we're worth. So that's most coaches have that. I think that holding that. How do I make sure I'm paid what I'm worth? And it feels comfortable for me. It's a thing coaches bring to supervision a lot.
Oh yeah.
How to cost and how to manage the ebb and flow of the business, and if somebody tries to knock you down in your funding, how to stick with, actually, that's good value. Yeah, I've now deviated a bit. One of the things, going back to the journey, one of the things that I decided right at the beginning was if I thought I was competent to do it, whatever it was, I would say yes. People didn't know what coaching was, so I just think if what they're describing, I'm comfortable ethically that I'm competent to do it, I'll just say yes, and then I'll kind of work out how afterwards.
And I love that when I guess there's where the dollop of pragmatism comes in, because what you were describing is, many, many moving parts, and it's almost, they're dancing all together, and then you really do have to put this dollop of just being really pragmatic, making it workable and sustainable. And you've got your boundaries there. And if it's not, well, as creative and energetic and brilliant and fun as it is, you're not giving things away. You are running a business. You have a shop and you have to survive.
Yeah. Yes, you have to survive. And both you and we are interested in coaches thriving and flourishing. And I think it's particularly tough when you first start and later on. You go freelance as a coach. You have to be good at three things. You have not just to be a good coach. It's not enough to be a good coach. You've got to be able to run a business, and you've got to be able to promote the business. And most people hate the words promote, sell, brand. They really dislike them, but we have to be able to do it, because it doesn't matter what wonderful business structure you've got and what a fabulous coach you are if nobody buys it. If you can afford to give your coaching away all the time, that's great, but most of us can't. And I always have some free coaching so that I always feel I'm, giving back, because I don't want it to be only for those who can afford it, but we have to do a kind of Robin Hood approach and make enough from some of the clients that we can offer to other clients at a reduced fee.
And has there been a moment in your journey where you would say you really did that brilliantly, where you did sell and you did kind of thrive as you were selling and exploring these new ways of coaching, but keeping that business going really well? And in that moment where you were really thriving, what were the things that really stand out for you in that moment, in that time in the journey?
I don't think I can. I don't think I can pin it down in that way, really. I don't think this answer, but it's the closest I can get. I've to start with, for a long time, I managed the having a bottom line of enough money by being an associate. Well, by bartering, which we've already come across, and by being an associate. So to start with, I was very lucky early on. And so I keep saying I'm lucky, but I do put myself out there and go and talk to people. I'm always interested in what people are up to. And I think coaches would really miss something if they think it's a competition because we're all after the same clients. We're absolutely not. If we connect with other coaches and work together, that there's enough work and people pass the work around. Right. So I originally met in all sorts of places by going to conferences and going to classes and, just kind of turning up for anything anybody would have me for. I met various coaches and I got a lot of associate work.
Well, with those experiences across all this time, and you've talked about that real go-get-em, that bold, bartering Jenny, what would you say your kind of tried and tested tips that you have, or methods of really getting coachees through the door into your practice?
Okay. Really getting work. I'm going to call it work, not coaches, because it could be anything. I start with networking, with knowing a lot of people and liking them and giving them good value and working with them. So one of my examples would be, I trained as a supervisor in 2009 with coaching development, who are just fabulous. I love their work with coaching development. And the next year, when we trained, it was a great piece of training. You could volunteer to supervise one of their people on their coaching diploma, right? So you did that free. It was good practice for the supervisor, the other person. So I think I had 2 of those, and one of them, we got on really well. We genuinely got on well. I enjoyed working with her. I worked with her for a while. When the free bit had finished, she said, could she have some more? I made sure the cost was acceptable. And then she said, would I like to come and do some leader as a coach training in her organisation? So then I did that. She and I wrote a program together for it. I didn't charge her for writing the program. So at this point, I'm still, just enjoying it. But I charged for running the program. I was then able to roll the program out elsewhere. Then I coached some people there. Then she left the organisation and someone else came. That second person and I ran the manager as coach program several times. And then I ran something on handling change in the organisation with them. That person left, and she's now one of my associates doing some ICF assessing for me. Then someone else came. He came into one of my supervision groups outside their community organisation. Then he left, and I got some coaching with people in the organisation he went to.
This is sounding like an interconnected web. There's this, and it makes me think about, systemic thinking, which I know features very much in your work. It's connecting all of these different dots, but you've got to know where the dots are, and you've got to create the dots almost. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So as tips that are tried and tested to get people in the door, how would that play out in terms of, coaches who are listening now? How might they?
Okay, colossal amounts of networking. Who would I like? Lots of networking. Knowing lots of people, genuinely knowing them, being willing to. You're not trying to sell. I know I sound like selling, but you're not trying to sell to the first person. You're trying to get to know them and understand what they want and just enjoy them and have a coffee with them. Right. And then they find out what you want. You find out what they want. I mean, I say want, but where you might like to work, or that you've got a bit of a specialism in coaching finance directors, or coaching people on returning from parental leave or whatever. So I've got in my head all those things. I've got several coaches who particularly work in neurodivergence, somebody who specialises in work after parental leave, so somebody says to me, and the coaches are looking for the other side of this, and people know what I do. So, one of my clients says to me, we've got a bit of a problem with this. I'm always going to have 2 or 3 coaches who I can say, oh, do you fancy that? And so it's about making yourself known, helping others, and being willing to say what you're to ask, being willing to ask, like ringing up AOEC and saying, I'll do you a barter. Who do you know who? When one of, we've done a lot of work with a large organisation, which I'm not going to name, we've been working with them for years, and somebody who was working there moved to one of the big 4 consultancies. And just after she'd left, I kept in touch with her. I said, well, you could take us with you, And she went, well, tell it how it is then, don't be shy. And well, if I was just hinting at that, so why don't I just say it? I've liked working with you. So then she went quiet for 2 years, and then she rang up and said, "Oh, I'd like to chat to you."
Oh, there's a lovely example, isn't there, of playing the long game as well. And just, waiting it out and having faith that a conversation you had 2 years ago will come to fruition now.
Well, if you have enough conversations, some of them will. I'm not expecting. We get really desperate if we think that they all will and they've all got to. And, oh, why hasn't she phoned me? And but if we're always saying, "Oh, look, this is fun," or "We could do that," or "Have you ever seen this?"
And those conversations that you've talked about so far in the networking have been with other coaches.
Yeah.
Are there other areas of life or communities that you also have networked with that have really helped you to get people that you have then gone on to coach?
When I first started, when I left the day job, I joined one of those business networking organisations. I had to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there was only one person per profession, and and it was you read the rules, and it's ghastly, and everybody went, "Oh, it's so American." Terrible.
Did you have to do your 1-minute pitch, Jenny?
Yeah, your 1-minute pitch, and give testimonials to other people. So this was 2001, I think. One might have been 2000 or 2001 when this group started. I'm having lunch with 2 other people next week, and that networking group produced 50% of my individual client business for the first 7 years.
Wow! And do you think that's something that would work now in 2025?
Well, I do see a few people. I do know a few people who have joined those and who are talking about it with enthusiasm.
And are there any particular networking organisations that you would recommend?
Well, the one I was a member of, BNI, Business Network International, still runs. I don't know what it's like now, and I think it's very dependent on your local group.
Well, I went to the local group, so I can give a little information on this, although I didn't go as a coach. But I went just before COVID as CEO of Freedom to Learn. I'm also work in the charity sector, running an education charity, so all very relevant, including there's quite a lot of coaching in that. But I couldn't join as a coach because there was already a coach who came regularly as a member. So they balance it out, I think, with quite strict regulation that you can really only have one person in each profession. Yeah. So that was the group in the New Forest, and they were brilliant, very structured, like you said. It's very formal, and you do your pitch. I went along a couple of times for a charity. It wasn't so great, but the coach was coaching at least 2 others. I think there were 3 actually in the group, and they were singing his praises. This coaching was the most phenomenal thing they did. It helped their business grow. So it had obviously worked for him really well.
I think it does work well. I think I was very lucky. I was in the Winchester one when it started. Again, you see, nobody had heard of coaching, but nobody had heard of those kind of networking groups either. And it was a brand new thing. And we were all brand new in it together. So that was really helpful.
Yeah.
And the person who set it up, he was sort of a regional organizer. He was amazing, but he was just a kind of a force of nature, and he could not get our names. I mean, why was running a networking group when he couldn't? Anyway, there was one woman called Dawn, and he just called us all Dawn half the time. So, and it was the crack of dawn. So we all called each other Dawn too. But it was hysterical. But those people, I mean, that's 25 years ago. Those people. One of those people still gets my car every time I need a new car. I always have second-hand cars, and I have electric, and I just say, "Colin, I've only got this much money and I need a car." Right, off you go. My financial advisor is from that group. I'd never had a financial advisor before, but there he was. Oh, okay, I'll do that. He's my financial advisor still. He's seen my business grow. We talk about it. A lot of the curtains in our house made by the interior designer. 2 or 3 of them I still have lunch with frequently.
Well, BNI we will most certainly put in the show notes.
Well, yeah, put them in, but we're not saying it's the only one, and it does depend on who's in that group, doesn't it? But there are lots of them.
And do you know of any others?
There are often local ones. People need to look in their local area. I mean, there used to be around here. There used to be a women's lunch group. I can't remember what it was called, but I used to go to that. So I did all these things. It comes down to liking people, being interested in people, chatting to people, all the things coaches are good at, listening to people, seeing what fits, what's the connection here. Who do I know who can help who?
And
you can use LinkedIn the same way. So I'm a great advocate of LinkedIn. A lot of people get sort of compare-itis from it and say it's always people boasting. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Follow the people who say interesting things. Applaud people. Be nice to other people. So recently, last year, Dr. Trish Turner posted something. I can't even remember where we started, but she posted something and I was interested in it. She runs a training program called Therapist to Coach. So I was interested in it, so I asked her about it. So then she asked me about something. Oh, that's right. So The Art of Coaching, which I wrote with Sarah Gornall, is on their reading list. Right. So I approached her about something. She said, "Oh, it's nice to hear from you because your book's on our reading list." So then we had a chat. Then we did a podcast together about the overlap and the difference between therapy and coaching. Now she's written a book. I'm going to give her some support on that. She's probably going to come and do a masterclass for one of the things I'm running. Right? That's LinkedIn. And, it's not all about boasting and selling. It's about, who's saying something I'm interested in, or who do I want to applaud because they've just got an occupational psychology degree and that's tough stuff. Well done, you. Fantastic. What are you going to do with it? I hope you're enjoying it.
I'm really hearing that on LinkedIn, you let your curiosity again lead you. Yeah. And with a lovely kind of warmth to it, you're talking about applauding and encouragement. And if we're going to put in one of your dollops of pragmatism here, if we're talking about this being really useful to listeners, I've heard Alex Swallow, who's another host on here, talking about tending to your LinkedIn garden, which I found really useful because occasionally you just need to go out and do the weeding and smarten something up in the garden. It's the same with LinkedIn. And how do you use LinkedIn regularly and consistently? How do you tend to the LinkedIn garden in really practical terms, Jenny?
Okay. So I'm brutal about anybody I think is just selling, and particularly anybody who's talking about online selling or about making your website better or getting you. Anybody who says they're going to get you these, high-paying clients, 10 a month or your money back kind of thing. No chance. If they ask me to connect, I just ignore them. When I connect with people, I try to do more than just tick. I don't want to be a number. So I either ask them what prompted them to connect with me, and I might say, have you seen The Art of Coaching? Perhaps it was that. Or have you seen Coach Continuum? Perhaps it was that.
You did exactly that with me.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely warm way with which you do it. It's not a who the hell are you? It's a lovely question.
And here we are. Yeah. So I had forgotten that. So you are the live evidence that this works. And then stuff comes out of it. And sometimes I say, how can I help? What prompted you? Is there something in particular that you want to know about, or that I might know about that I can help you with? So conversations go on, and there's somebody else I must reply to actually, but I do it tending the garden. I do it like you do tending a garden. Because it could eat up your entire life, couldn't it? So every now and then I go, oh, goody, nice cup of tea and half an hour going through who's invited me recently and seeing if I can start some conversations. But not trawling about every day because you'll just implode.
So making it a treat. that sounded like.
Yes.
And a delicious thing to do.
A delicious thing to do.
With some friendliness, encouragement, and also a little brutality. Just know when to say no. You said you were brutal.
Yeah. We can't. Yes, you hit it with what curious and interesting. It's all the things we are as coaches. You just kind of apply that to somewhere else, but with the brutality.
I was just going to say, maybe boundaries is the better B word. Yes.
Have your boundaries.
Yeah.
Have your boundaries.
Yeah, I think that could be really useful.
Hi everybody, Robbie here. I'm the creator of The Coach's Journey. If you like what you're hearing on this episode, the chances are you'll love An Introduction to the Coaching Business Flywheel. That's a free ebook available at thecoachesjourney.com. It's the most important piece of content I've ever created for coaches, boiling down everything I've learned from this show, from working with master coaches, and from my own experience into one simple model. The model not only tells you the only things you have to do to have a sustainable coaching business, but also shows you how they can form a virtuous circle that keeps your coaching business growing. It's all free, and you can find it at thecoachesjourney.com. And there's a link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
And with friendliness and inquiring, we haven't really gone into Coaching Continuum yet. And we knew right at the beginning of this conversation, we mentioned about people thriving and people flourishing. And you've got this absolutely beautiful strapline of where, now let me make sure I've got it right, where coaches flourish. Is that right? And it's such a lovely word, and it's so encouraging just to hear it and to say it. I wondered if, well, no, I'm not going to ask you specific questions. I'd love you just to tell us all about what Coaching Continuum is and what it does and how it helps coaches flourish.
Yes. It comes from, I suppose it comes from Ruchi's done an enormous amount of coach training, initial coach training. I've done a bit and she's done masses, and I've done a lot of supervision and she's done some. And it comes from what we hear coaches saying about, for instance, the ebb and flow of business, the peaks and troughs, about, not having somewhere to take an inquiry, about feeling a bit lonely and isolated, about, does this happen to everyone or is it just me? I wondered about that client. I'm listening to one of my clients. I'm bored. I'm so ashamed of myself. I'm bored. No, that happens to everyone. So hearing a lot of coaches say similar things and being on their own with them.
It's lovely to hear you say that. To be really open about that just here on the podcast and say, yes, sometimes there's not that gel, is there? And it's difficult. So there's a space at Coaching Continuum for these sorts of conversations, from what you're saying.
Yeah, so the space, and we want it to be affordable, because there's another occupational hazard of coaching, I think, which is that I still do it. We go, I haven't done any training for a bit. I need to do it. I need to do another piece of training. What shall I do next? Right? People I've supervised, many people have said to me, what shall I do next? And sometimes I say, well, what skill is it you're wanting to build? What do you think the gap is? Well, I don't know, but I just need to do another piece of training. What's next? I think maybe you don't need, you've done NLP and a bit of Gestalt. And do you really need another methodology? I think you need something to be more you and coaching more in your way and be really engaged with it and deepen it, rather than going, no, I'll have another methodology. It's somehow out there, not in here. So, and those huge pieces of coaching, delicious as they are, I've done several of them, are very expensive and very time consuming. And if we're already very, very competent, I'm not always certain what they add. So it's about providing, as far as we can, everything a coach needs in one place, a one-stop shop, and affordable. Right. And kind of having it there so that you're not in a mix of isolation and overwhelm. So, you want something you you're feeling there's a gap or you're missing something, and you go and you start researching, are there some courses on this? Is there a group that meets on this? And then you find 15 things and you're in overwhelm. So you've gone from isolation to, I can't make a choice because there's so much here, which is why people say, which course shall I do? There's a constant stream of people on LinkedIn and elsewhere asking, I'm thinking of doing, something about walking coaching. Where shall I look? And then they get 15 replies and then they're lost again. So we say, I love making up slogans as well, which is terrible.
And creative, yes.
Which is because, it's the creative language thing. So, we've got our finger on the pulse, so you can put your foot on the accelerator. So, if you want to know current info, what's going on, what methodology might we use for that? Where can I find that? And we drop resources regularly, 2 or 3 a month at the moment. Short resources, which are audios, videos, written pieces. Sometimes we run CPD sessions, we run networking sessions, we have supervision sessions. So you can pretty much get the whole underpinning or safety net for yourself, your practice and your business in one place without having to keep going and looking again.
With the different levels of pricing as well. There's different entry levels.
Yes.
We have a similar thing at the Coach's Journey, different entry levels. And really it's for the sense of community. So I can really relate to what you're saying about connection and support and having somewhere where you can, hopefully in a relatively non-judgmental space, be able to talk about your experience as a coach, and normalize it essentially, because you find out, it's not just me. And it's interesting that you said about people coming to what more training do I need to do? What next course do I need to do? I've had exactly that experience as a coach myself in a Coach's Journey community. And Robbie Swale said to me, I don't know if you need to do any more training, Joey. You need to bring more of yourself. So it was really lovely that you've just said exactly the same thing. It just once again shows how aligned the two organisations are. Yeah. I love this one-stop shop, though. I think that's something, and I have looked at your research. I do recommend people go and have a look, because there are also resources where you don't even have to be a member, Jenny. I've signed up and I'm not paying anything, and I've had a couple of great resources.
Thank you. You just give us your email address and you can have some resources. You can choose some resources. Yeah. To give you a feel for what sort of resources we send out and we offer. And we've also got quite a lot of internal coaches. We've got groups of internal coaches there, which is very nice because they're bringing a different set of issues, but but they still need that external networking. So they're not looking for coachees in the same way that an external coach is, but they can still feel isolated. They can have trouble fitting the coaching in with the day job.
Yeah. I imagine they do bring a very different set.
So the networking's really rich with the two types, and we have this is one of our giving back things. All the coaches at St Mungo's, the homelessness charity, are in as members as part of our gift to them. So,
and again, the generosity, you find it a lot in the coaching industry, don't we? Generosity. Yes. Just with so all the different types of coaches you've got in internal coaches,
yes.
Coaches like me, coaches who work for charities, coaches in all different areas are joining this relatively new coaching continuum. I'm wondering, do you know what, you could probably draw on the experience of coaching continuum and the wealth of experience you've got behind you as a coach and in supervision. What have you heard that really what are the big ones that prevent coaches from flourishing and thriving?
Yeah. And I know this is part of your mission as well, isn't it? not being able to do the three things, not struggling to run the business as well as be a good coach and keep up with both of them. We've said it earlier, clients through the door. It's I was going to say tough. There's a certain temperament, and you have to have certain, you have to have some kind of a buffer zone when you start. You have to, so there's a whole bundle around that. And one of the things people quite often do is turn their back on the industry they came from. Yes, but that's the people you know. Everybody you've ever enjoyed working with, write to them and say, what are you up to now? Let's have a cup of coffee. Let's have a virtual tea. And I'd love to hear what you're doing. So,
and how do you get over that sounding as if you are trying to sell?
well, by if they take you up on it, but by not pushing if they don't take you up on it, and by if they take you up on it, not selling. Really, really just being interested in them first. Seek first to understand, not to be understood.
Beautiful.
And back to BNI, which had lots of lovely sayings, givers gain, givers gain. So you give first and you may gain. And it might be 3 years down the line.
We bumped it up to 3 years. Yes. Yes. Or longer, even.
Well, people, I have lots of, returning clients, or I have one recently. I coached her way before the pandemic, 7 or 8 years at one organisation. I think when I was an associate, I can't even remember how I got that piece of work, who'd moved twice in the meantime, who came to me through LinkedIn, because that's where you're still present. If your business has changed, you're still present on LinkedIn. Came to me through LinkedIn and said, do you remember me? I was there. I've got 2 people I'd like you to coach. So sometimes the gap is huge. And I know when you start, it's hard to believe in that, but it's also, you can't live with it. It's no good getting paid 7 years from now if you paid this year or this month.
And when you're saying about, when I asked you about what prevents coaches from thriving, we talk about the coach's journey. We've said a lot about, what we don't want coaches to do. We don't want anyone to give up coaching, because running a coaching practice is too hard. And so you've highlighted one of the reasons, and we could go into the many other reasons, but I wondered if you maybe have a story of coaches or a coach, someone that you've worked with who really wasn't thriving or wasn't flourishing and really was struggling, and then transformed their practice.
I don't think I have. I don't know. I'm really sorry. You should have warned me of that.
That's cheerful. I could have warned you. That's true. I might have thought of it in advance a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, possibly because maybe because they don't. Oh, I can think of someone. Yeah. And I can think of someone who, what changed them into thriving was working out, and we did some of that work together, what they really, really loved, what they really, really wanted to do. And I'm trying to think whether I can now advertise that person, because I'd love to, but now I've got too far down the line. Anyway, I'll think about that later. Came up with something, a unique training method, and actually moved over into that, and then offered that in some big organisations and did some coaching on the back of the training method. The training method was where their intellectual passion, research passion was.
Wow. So essentially they used, in tandem with you, in partnership with you, they used their creativity in order to really be able to form something that was very tangible. Is that right? From what they really loved, that they could then go on and sell and would create value.
So I think the question, I was supervising that person. It was a very skilled coach, but was just, for whatever reason, not having a big throughput of clients. I think it came out of asking things like, well, what do you really love? What do you really, really enjoy? And what they really enjoyed was doing, it's actually historical research. So what you really enjoy, okay, how could you harness that into something you do? And then they harnessed it into a training method. And that was the flourishing, because it was such fun for them. And then out of that came coaching. But by that time, it didn't really matter whether the coaching came out of it, because they were doing the thing they really loved anyway. It's a bit convoluted to explain it, but
well, convoluted, but kind of. It seemed like a story where really the highlight here is find what you really love.
Yes.
And use it. It. I'd always like to think of a rugby coach. Use it. So I'm not sure. Convoluted. I know there are 3 other C words that I think I prefer, that I've definitely read quite a lot throughout your work. And that is that I think I'm sure I've read them. I can't remember exactly where. You might be able to tell me. It might even be in the brilliant book, The Art of Coaching. Confidence, courage, and competence.
Yes. We're very into C's. Yeah. Confidence, courage, and competence. Yes.
Yeah.
You've got to be competent to run a coaching business, but you've also got to be confident that you do bring value and that you can say that to people. And you have to be courageous, because you can get out there and tell them about it, and try things and experiment and, kiss a few frogs.
Kiss a few frogs. I think that might be the title of this episode. Kiss a few frogs. That's what Jenny Bird says. Be bold.
Be bold and kiss a few frogs.
When we think about all the different resources that you've built, then, because Coaching Continuum, we're talking about courage, confidence, competence. We've got these. We've talked earlier about the big dollop of pragmatism, along with creativity, which isn't in your C word there. I noticed, but there are some quite, I think what you've said before, I've heard you say, is how much you really love developing resources, and there are a plethora. There's a whole body of work and Coaching Continuum and in your books, both of which we will put in the show notes, by the way. We'll put a link to, for any listeners, highly recommended. They're books that you can delve into as well, especially The Art of Coaching. You can really dip in and out, and it's useful every time. What would you say are the most kind of quirky and unconventional, most Jenny type resources that you've developed? Anything spring to mind?
We have. So I do love them. We have something on pretty much everything. We've got a whole series at Coach Continuum called The Client Who. The client who doesn't speak at all, the client who never stops speaking, the client who doesn't know, the client who cancels and postpones, the client who. One of the ones that's been most popular on at Coach Continuum is one about poetry, just using creativity, quoting, allowing coaches to quote, occasionally bringing whole poems. I did an English degree a million years ago, and I have a really good memory for poetry. I love it, and it feels as though it's the furniture in my head. So I'm quite often offering bits of poetry in the middle of coaching, because I think poetry, like music, cuts through meaning to emotion. You don't have to understand what the poem means. It cuts through to the emotion. So,
oh, Jenny, that's beautiful. I have a similar thing with song lyrics that is so often popping into my head. And the fact that you've just said about them being the furniture in your mind, I'm wondering if people listening, if they might stop and ponder what the furniture in their mind is. Because that ties beautifully in, doesn't it? Also with thriving and flourishing, what's there already? What do you already love? What's already embedded that you can use?
And that's not about be yourself, all the other parts are taken. The best, we have to cope with ourselves. People often, they ask us what that unique thing is. What makes you different? Tell me. What is your unique offering as a coach? Well, my unique offering is my Jenniness. There are lots of coaches who are as trained, as qualified, as experienced as I am. You've had several of them on this podcast, right?
Yes, we have. Many.
Yeah. And any of us could do the job that somebody's offering. That's why we have chemistry sessions. The only thing that's unique about me is my Jenniness, and the only thing that's unique about Claire Pedrick is her Clareness.
Yeah.
We're both similarly experienced and trained. We have different specialisms, I guess. And, if we both did chemistry sessions with people, some of them had had better chemistry with Claire and some of them had had better chemistry with me. And that's just how it is. And that's why for me, it's not competitive. It's just, okay, am I a fit here? Do I like it? Does the coachee like it? Do we think we can do good work together? Is it going to be fun?
And Jenny, I really hear that actually throughout a lot of the things you've said is this, to use a very coachy term, abundant mindset. You've got this real sense of abundance, and you've talked about collaboration, you've talked about working lots with other coaches, you've talked about knowing that the work is out there and it's not a matter of competing with each other. And I think that it seems like has threaded throughout all of your work and served you really well.
Yeah, I think so. And there's got to be some go-getting. There's got to be looking for the opportunities. I mean, it's not so abundant that if I just sit here and go, oh, here I am being Jenny, it will all flow into me. and of course, I'm going to go, I've been lucky. And, there's a golfer who says, I notice that the more I practice, the luckier I get. So I do think I've been lucky, but I've also spotted the opportunities.
And I'm going to repeat that. The more I practice, the luckier I get.
And I can't remember which golfer it is.
We can certainly apply that to our practice.
Yes.
The more we practice, the more referrals we have, the more networking we do, the more confident we get, the more creative we get, the more competent we get. Again, with all your C words, that's beautiful. That's gold. The more we practice.
And we have lots of C words for coach continuum, which of course is C words, community, connection. Lots of lovely C words.
Yeah, there are many lovely C words.
There are many C words.
And I'm kind of wondering here if we could go back a little to your journey, because we got to about 2004, 5, 6, 7, maybe. You're internally moderating. You've done some supervision training. You were talked about being an associate. So where could you now take us around those mid, 2005, 2006? What happened next?
So I did. So it kind of went coaching, moderating, working with coach trainers, mentoring for ICF competencies, ICF assessing for coach training schools, training as a supervisor, meeting Sarah Gornall, saying, oh, I've got an idea for a book. Sarah Gornall said, oh, I'll write it with you. So off we went and did it.
Collaborate.
Thank you very much. And then somewhere just about there, when Sarah and I were doing lots of work together, somebody I had mentored, I think, got a job as director of people at a big finance organisation. And I said, well, that's a bit of a departure. And you're in Bristol a lot, and my son lives in Bristol, and I'll go to Bristol. Why don't we have a coffee? Love to hear what you're doing. So we try and arrange a coffee, and we don't manage it for a bit. And then she says, really, really want to have coffee. And I say, oh, well, what about this evening and where will we meet? And she says, no, I need you to come into the office. Come into the office. There's someone I want you to meet. So I go into the office. She's trying not to give away the organisation very much. And she said, after a bit, she said, I want you to run all our coaching. And now at this point, I wasn't a consultancy. I was a sole trader. And I said, I'm not a consultancy. Gulping. I'm not a consultancy. And she said, yes, but you know more about coach standards and coaching than anyone else I know. I'd like you to do it. So I went, oh, all right. So she said, I've got Go on then. I've got this big piece because we're doing some leadership training and we need all the people on the leadership training. I think you'll need about 4 coaches, and I'd like them to be local because we want to contribute to the local economy. Well, I like that as well. So she said, 4 coaches. So because I know so many coaches, because I'd done lots of networking, I said, oh, well, I think it'll be this person, and that person who all lived in that area, because I happen to know where they lived. And I said, I'll go away and sort it out. So I reel out of her office. I mean, really shell-shocked. This was July and she wanted to start this in September. I did say thank you, by the way. I went and got a coffee and sat down and I rang my PA. Here's an, get someone to do all the things you can't do. Karen followed me from my old job. After I'd been going about 1.5 years on my own, she said, I think you need some admin support. I think I'd better come and do it. And she'd been head of the typing office, the general office as it was called in those days. And she worked with me till she retired earlier this year.
There was a little bit of gold there in that you just said in one sentence. I'm not quite sure if I'll get it right, but it was something along the lines of get people to do the things you can't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's another tip for flourishing and thriving.
Yes. Only do what only you can do. As soon as you can afford.
Okay.
Only do what only you can do. As soon as you can afford the help with the things that aren't natural and easy to you, find someone who is happy with those things, who does them. So Karen did. Unfortunately, I had to look at a VAT return last week and I'd never seen one before because Karen's done them all for 20 years. Anyway, so I said, Karen, we're going to be a consultancy. We're going to have associates. And she said, oh, all right. Right, because she's just like me. Oh, all right. And I said, I think we're going to need an employment lawyer and some associate agreements and some contracts, and we're going to need to know how to pay them. And she said, oh, yes, all right, I'll get on to that then. And then she said, I think we might need different insurance, and I think we might need this and that. Oh, okay.
So this is a real leap in your practice.
That was a huge leap.
Almost from out of the blue, although I'm sure you said, but as you said, the more you practice, the luckier you get. So it didn't come from nowhere.
No.
You'd been planting seeds all over the place.
But
this is a real leap.
I hadn't intended to do it. I hadn't really thought I wanted to do it, but it was a lovely offer. We had a lot of fun. And then of course, I got associates. I always said then we had to have a website for that with the associates on it. So then we got other pieces of work, and they came through other people I'd done bits of individual work with, most of them. They've almost all...
connections.
Yeah, they've almost all come... Because people have to trust you. It's easier if people trust you already, isn't it? And all my associates are people I've seen coaching, right? So I've only once had to kind of find an associate specific out of the blue whom I didn't know. And it's because we needed somebody in Turkey who spoke Turkish. And I didn't happen to know anybody like that. But everybody else is people I've seen work anyway and got on with and know I like. And then Ruchi and I, Coach Continuum Ruchi, met. So then when I was a consultancy, and then we had lots of other pieces of work. And
so this was September. What year you began that?
I think it was 2000 and. That might have been 2013. It's getting a little way on. I think I was, Sarah and I were writing the first book at that point.
All right. So these things are happening in tandem.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're really looking forward. I mean, what I'm looking at is more than a decade into your business.
Yes.
This big leap has happened. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because I'd done all the other things first. And I suppose that's what I'd got, wasn't it? When she said you knew more about coaching standards than anyone I know, it's because I'd done coach training, mentoring, assessing, supervision. I've been all round the bits that aren't the actual coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Sarah, how many years on? Maybe 2000, or must have been before the pandemic, 2000 and 18 or 19, Sarah and I went to do a free training session for coaches at civil service learning. So we went to do a free masterclass. In fact, I think we taught them how to do tactile imagoes. Anyway, I like those very much, mapping things. There was a long coffee queue. I was in this long coffee queue, and I was standing next to Ruchi, and we got talking. I never met her before. We got talking. By the time we got to the front of the queue, we knew we wanted to work together.
Ah, look at that. Again, serendipity.
Again, yeah.
But through all the seeds that you planted, all the connections you've made, again, there's the lesson. Keep connecting.
Am I lucky? Am I blessed? Am I just bold? I said, I really like you. Let's talk to each other again. Let's do something. And she said, I'd love to work with you. I said, well, we'll do that then. So, and we followed through on it. And it was a while before we did very much.
So that was in 2017, you said.
No, I think that was probably just before the pandemic. 2019. Yeah, so Sarah and I...
Okay. So it was quite a while after. I'm just thinking we've leapt over this amazing book that so many people now have on their training courses, The Art of Coaching, which you co-published, co-wrote, co-created in 2015. And we did say earlier we would jump into that because you are at the 10-year anniversary. This is where I catch you.
Yes, we are. And Sarah and I then did one of the ways going back to selling for a bit, we got it so well known was that we wrote to, and don't ever think, folks, if you're writing a book, do not think that the good academic publishers like Routledge and so on are going to market it for you, because they're not. Right, Routledge was great. They had fantastic production values. We'd had 3 other publishers interested first, 2 or 3, but none of them would have it how we wanted it, with those unusual artists' illustrations. They wanted, kind of clip art stuff, and they wouldn't have the layout we wanted. And we were very clear what it had to look like. And Routledge were just wonderful about it. So their production values are great, but they do not market it. So Sarah and I wrote to every coach training school in the country and a few in Europe, and said, we'll do you a free seminar or webinar if you'll buy some of these books. And at some point, Henley bought 70 copies of the book. And then we took the books around, and we did how to be creative, the creative coach, presentation with lots of practice in it, and how to get people drawing and mapping. We did them all over the place. We did one at what's the Oxford one? Can't remember. Anyway, we did them at Animas, AOEC, the Oxford one.
Again, really bold, communicating and connecting.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course we knew people at lots of these places because we'd been busy knowing people all the time.
Yeah. So it's all these little. It's like I feel it's like kind of seeds, like growing up into this kind of nice forest that's all Jenny's.
Yeah.
You're like, I think I remember down that path. There's this person, and up there's that organisation. Oh yeah, I met you're like constantly. Again, I think it does it feed into this like systemic thinking that really threads throughout all of the work that you've done, and you definitely bring it into Coach Continuum. It's really, here it is in practice, you doing it and reaping the reward.
Yeah. We are in a system, aren't we? And if we like the coaching, we can love the system. Most coaches are great, and they're interested in what other coaches do, and they're interested in learning. So, there are people I'd love to applaud. Eric DeHaan is great. I did some stuff at Ashridge a couple of times, and we presented at one of their conferences. When we were doing the brave thing of recording coaching sessions and listening to them in supervision, and we recorded part of one of my coaching sessions, and somebody supervised me live on it. I like doing things that are scary.
But they're scary, did you say? Didn't quite hear.
That was scary because they played this coaching session I'd done, and I was supervised live on how it had gone for me. I also coached twice, or 2 or 3 times, coached somebody speaking a language I don't speak, and it was not translated. So I didn't understand what they were saying, but I coached them.
Wow. That's not
You're
something...
making a sort of...
Yeah, well, I coach people who speak Nepali, and I have translation always, or unless it's a level of Nepali I can, but it never is with coaching. I can never get into that digging in. So we always do it as a 3. So that's really, unless the person speaks English. So I'm wondering how you do that. It's the opposite of telephone coaching that I do. I do a lot of coaching on the phone, and you're hearing the words only. You're doing everything but the words. How does that work? Tell us about that experience. It's a tangent I didn't expect to jump into.
I would love to do it again. So if there's somebody out there, one of the difficulties is that you need the audience to understand. So I've done it with ICF chapters because the audience understands what the coach is saying, but I don't. And sometimes my questions are translated. But how much do we get from our coaches, from their tone and their gesture and their pauses and so on? So I'll say, something, most people will have done content-free coaching, where you have a group of people. I did a lot of this when I first started as well. I got clients through this. So I would go and speak to a group, and then I would talk about benefits of coaching. And then I would say, I'm going to coach you all at once. All you need is paper and pencil and your thinking. And have you done content-free coaching?
I've read about it. I haven't myself.
Okay. So, you say, so just think about something that you would like to have be different. Not a huge thing. And it's something within your control, but something you'd like to be different in, say, 6 months. Okay, what's it like now? They're all writing away. What's it like now? And what would it ideally be like? Okay, when you look at the gap between those two things, what do you notice? What bothers you about that? What entices you about that? And have you experimented with any of it? What experiments have you tried? And then you go on. And I once did one, and about 6 months after 8 months after I'd done this thing, somebody approached somebody else I knew, and he said something about, oh, do you know Jenny Bird? And she said, yes, she got me grade 7 piano. And he said, how's that then? And she said, oh, well, she did this content-free coaching, and I thought I'd better get and do another piano exam, and off I went and did it.
Really, it just takes you off into something different, something you weren't expecting then. And how does this relate to the language?
So when somebody's speaking another language, you're saying to them, oh, you paused then. What happened then? And one of them, she was doing that with one hand quite a lot of the time, and then she was doing a sort of holding gesture.
For people who are only listening, you furiously moved your hand up and down in a vertical manner then, first time.
Yes, sorry, a sort of chopping gesture with one hand and a sort of holding gesture afterwards. So I was able to say, so you did that, copying the chopping gesture, and then you did that. And I wonder what you notice when you think about those two gestures. And off she went again. And then she was doing more of one of them. And I was saying, well, so you're doing more of that gesture. Now what's happening? Now what are you thinking about? And how does this fit with what you started with?
And you're not understanding the answers. Have I got that right? Wow.
No.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to try this. I'm lucky enough to have opportunities to try this. So I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Both times it seems to have worked. And I'd love to do it again. The difficulty of doing it here is that, so I could do it with somebody. Yes, I could do Ruchi speaks a million languages. I could do it with her, but most of the audience wouldn't understand what she was saying. So it's better to do it with me being kind of the only English speaker, but a lot of them understanding what I'm saying.
Wow. Great.
No, well, you see what I mean. Anyway, but there's something about what do we enjoy about a person? What do we know about them? I don't know how we got onto this. Was it something about the journey? It was something about where we got to when Rooch and I were in the coffee queue.
And then we went back to the book, and then I'm still reeling a little from the idea that the art of coaching could have been full of clip art images. I cannot imagine. Well, I don't think I ever would have picked it up if that was the case. The book, the 10-year anniversary, which we still haven't talked about. You talked about Routledge being rubbish at marketing, but wonderful, allowing you to be creative. And then jumping forward to 2019, you meet her in a queue and you say boldly, I really enjoyed our conversation. Let's do something. Didn't come to fruition for a while. So that's 6 years ago. So we're almost here to this time. What happened next? Where would you like to take us? On your coach's journey, that is. What's relevant to that?
My coach's journey. Yeah, the pandemic was interesting, wasn't it? And I'm looking at is the timing all right? The pandemic was very interesting. So there's something for me about when things change, we have to change. And in the pandemic, I said to all my supervisees, as it started, I said, and people's businesses fell off a cliff. And I said, well, you can just pay what you can afford. People were saying, I can't afford supervision. I was saying, no, when this is when you need it. It's tough. Your business is suffering. We're all uncomfortable. We're all concerned and worried. You can't be not having supervision, so you can just pay what you can afford. And I think that probably leads into Coach Continuum.
Okay.
We shouldn't have to give it up when we need it. And after a bit, I thought, oh dear, perhaps I shouldn't have said that to everybody, because actually now, it's getting a bit tight here. And then I started running much bigger supervision groups than I'd run before. And I took a bit of flack from other supervisors. You can't run a group of 15 for supervision.
Oh, there's that structure and creativity and flexibility with a dollop of pragmatism in again coming out.
Yeah. Because I needed to go back to earning my hourly rate and people couldn't afford it. So the answer is to split it between more people.
And I have heard you talk about how COVID really changed the face of the coaching industry so much. And I heard you talking about that some time ago in an interview. I wonder now in 2025 what you think, what changes have been sustained, and if there are any strengths or shadows to that.
For us, nothing's gone back in person. Nothing. I do one group in person now. And our big clients where we've continued to do a lot of, we do all the coaching in an organisation with my delicious associates who are all people and all a bit, bit quirky and a bit different, and met them in different places and saw them. None of it's all online. It's all virtual. For me, that's mainly great. I wouldn't want still to be on the platform in Winchester at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm too old to be gadding about Europe.
Ooh. I might jump here, Jenny, because I am conscious of time. And you saying that to me about you being on the platform takes me back to remembering you saying about you being all over Europe previously, traveling for work. And I remember now we do this thing at the Coach's Journey where we always ask a guest, what are the things you would love to talk about? Or what are the things that people who know you well might want to ask you? And one of those was, where has coaching taken you that you wouldn't have been otherwise? So perhaps platforms at 7 a.m. in the morning, but I suspect it might be more interesting than that. So please delve into that answer.
Absolutely. Wow. The quirky places you go, and this might be our closing shot, mightn't it? Well, I have I've seen the Lutein Bell in Lloyd's of London. That's interesting. I think you can probably get in to see that, but that was very interesting. The one they used to ring when a ship was going down, and all the insurers and underwriters had to, come and hear the news hundreds of years ago.
That. Can you say the name again?
Lutein, Lutine. And even more exciting, because I think one could get in to see that, I've been in a world famous art gallery when they were hanging pictures for sale, including a clay, So, incredibly expensive. And I'm just kind of lurking around waiting for somebody, and I'm going, look at that painting. Amazing. I've been in Peter Scott's study in the Wetlands Centre with the painting he was working on when he died still on the easel, where they've kept it there. They're sort of looking over the lake covered in flamingos, trying to concentrate on a three-way meeting. I've been in, and I'm probably the most practical one. I've been in the Mount Pleasant sorting office with the mailbag shooting down the chutes and banging on the floor, and all the postal workers rushing about and sorting the letters into heaps. And yeah, and you would not normally go to those places. Community ed was fun, but the best it got really was a community centre in the New Forest, or a school gym in Southampton.
I mean, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because where we landed on that question in this conversation is actually because we were saying about the transformation since COVID, and you said none of it's gone back to in person. So those of us coaching now, mainly post-pandemic, those of us who've got practice similar age to mine, 6-7 years, we don't necessarily get to have those in-person, moving around, exploring new places experiences unless we're bold and we really go for it. It's very easy to do everything on.
I've been through all the security to get into the Home Office. That was fun as well, where they sort of put you in this little glass tube and you're in it with both sides closed for a while. That's a bit spooky. And then you're wearing a badge which says must not allowed unaccompanied, or must always be accompanied.
I think I might need one of those, full stop. Oh, it's a great question, actually. It's a great question to ask ourselves. Where are the places that coaching has taken us? And also, where are the places we want coaching to take us, perhaps?
Yes, both metaphorically and literally. Where can it take you? And what I adore about it is it takes you into other people's worlds, into really, oh gosh, other people think differently. That is another way of deconstructing the world. Oh, wow. I feel quite, it feels sort of sacred to me, really, that we can have that insight into another way of seeing things.
I love it that you've called that sacred. Yeah, it does feel like a magical world. All my coaching, apart from my coaching in Nepal, is done on the phone. And it's I often coach with my eyes closed, I'm on the phone. We're together in the kind of the worlds of the innards of the person on the other end of the phone. And it is like stepping into a different place. And I love it that you've called it sacred. That's beautiful. And I've heard people say it's privilege. It's such a privilege to really get into and see things from a completely different perspective that you would have done otherwise, which is kind of saying the same as what you've just touched on.
I remember when I first started, when I first started, I thought it was all going to be on the phone because that was the model. And then I discovered that people wanted to see me. And then I thought, I think there's a cafe in a vineyard near here. And I wandered off and discovered that, yes, the cafe was gorgeous, white starched linen and everything. And it was open all day, but nobody ever went in the afternoon, but they would bring tea. So I used to coach people there to start with. And I ended up bartering and coaching both the couple who ran it. She was front of house and he was the chef. And after I'd been there with 3 different men, she came over to me and said, I know what you're doing. And I said,
where did the places coaching take you didn't expect?
Yeah. And then she said, you're coaching, aren't you? And I said, yes. And she said, well, we'd like some, but we can't afford it, so we'll pay you in meals. So I said, that's great. So we had some fabulous meals there, like they were just making a name for themselves. But I used to sit with the people who were paying and have dinner. As they saw my car drive up, they'd get my tea ready because they knew what I wanted. So luxurious. And then I'd come straight out of, education, which is running in Nissen huts on a shoestring. And so I'd be sitting there and before the client came, thinking, I can't believe people are paying me to be here. The whole thing is such a privilege. And I guess I still think that, really.
I've been coaching a new coach, and she talks about pinch me moments.
Yes.
And she gets paid. So that's lovely. The way you've just described that really relates to that. I'm wondering, because actually a lot of the people who listen to the Coach's Journey are obviously, they are coaches. And if you could, I'm trying to think of a good way to phrase this, but if there was something that you could whisper in all of their ears, what might that be?
It's hard because we are all different and our journeys are all different. And I don't want to discount anybody's difficulties, anybody's journey, anybody's discomfort if it's hard to start with. I want to acknowledge that I feel as though it's been comparatively easy, and maybe I've got rose-coloured spectacles now. I know it's all right. You can only see the path looking back.
You've
when
got
you're
that
on
lovely long arc. Yes, Jenny.
So maybe that's what I'd whisper. You can only see the path looking back. You'll be okay. Bring yourself. Bring yourself.
I don't think that's just for coaching. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, what a beautiful conversation we've had, that we managed to fit in, third time lucky. And we said we would finish it at 6 p.m. We fit ourselves in beautifully into this lovely slot of time. And we have.
It's been a joy and fun and interesting and exploratory and made me think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny Bird. It's been magic.
Thank you, Joey.
Hey everybody, Robbie here. I'm the creator of The Coach's Journey, and I've just got a few quick things to share with you before you get on with the rest of your day. Thanks for getting all the way to the end of the episode. I'm imagining that means you think the work we're doing is important and valuable. We think so too, and if you loved this episode, I want to tell you about two other things I think you'll love. The first is my free ebook, An Introduction to the Coaching Business Flywheel, which you can get at thecoachesjourney.com. It's my attempt to boil everything I've learned from my years supporting, coaching, and interviewing coaches about their businesses into one simple model containing the fundamentals of any sustainable coaching businesses. These are the only things you have to do to have a sustainable coaching business, and the things that if you don't do them, you can't have a sustainable coaching business. And you can get it for free at thecoachesjourney.com. And also, you might be interested in the Coach's Journey community. All the host team have been members of the community at different times, and it's my flexible, affordable group coaching program for coaches. You pay £20 or £100 a month, and you get access to a certain number of group coaching calls each year, plus some one-to-one time with me if you're a full member, and various other benefits. And of course, you get the chance to be connected to other amazing coaches on their own journeys. You can join the community at thecoachesjourney.com/community, and there's links wherever you're listening. Thanks so much to everyone who's supported the Coach's Journey over the years, but in particular, thanks to Alex O'Neill, Alex Whitten, Alan Bedding, David Norris, Jessica Jem, Mike Trugman, and Nikki Marsden for your ongoing support. Thank you too for listening, and we hope to have you back with us on the Coach's Journey podcast sometime soon.